The Lamestream media protects Biden at all costs. Bud Light distributors finally wave the white flag, and people are now becoming animals. Seriously. Seriously. All that and more today on Speechless, The Daily Show. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Speechless, The Daily Show. I'm your host, Kev Phares, trying something new out here with the dual camera kind of thing. We'll see how it works. I produce my own show, so we'll see exactly how it goes and how much we'll be using it. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Kev Phares, 22-year-old conservative college student, radio host out of Central Illinois. And before we get into everything, because there's a lot to get into, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you like what you hear, share the video, post it to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you want to share it. And don't forget to comment. I want to know. I want this to be an interactive show. I want you guys to have a say in everything that I talk about here, and because this show isn't just about me; it's about all of us, and getting the info out there that the lamestream media doesn't want people to hear. And a perfect example of that is, according to the Media Research Center, yesterday between 6 a.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern Time, CNN and MSNBC made a combined 759 mentions of Donald Trump, while at the same time mentioning Devon Archer only 48 times. So you might have seen my show yesterday. I covered everything about the Devon Archer testimony to the House Oversight Committee and the bombshell that he dropped, saying that Joe Biden was on over 20 calls with Hunter Biden's business associates, despite telling people that he had never talked to or had any involvement in Hunter Biden's business associates. Real quick, here's that clip.
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period. There is zero evidence of any assertion being made.
How involved were you in your son's Chinese shakedown text message? Were you sitting there? Were you involved?
No, I wasn't, and I don't know.
Were you?
No.
No, he wasn't involved, but Devon Archer, like I said, revealed yesterday in congressional testimony to the House Oversight Committee that, yes, Joe Biden was involved in some way on over 20 phone calls. And now the liberal media obviously was not covering that. As I said, they made a combined mention of Donald Trump yesterday 759 times, CNN and MSNBC, while at the same time only mentioning Devon Archer just 48 times. So for context, CNN and MSNBC over this 10-hour span, if their mentions were spread out evenly throughout that time, that you would hear about Trump or something regarding Trump on either of those channels about every 50 seconds. As for Devon Archer, you'd have to wait about 12 minutes and 30 seconds between mentions. So at least once per minute, they're talking about Trump, but once every 15 or so minutes is Devon Archer. And why is this and everything? Why is this? Well, let's talk about it a little bit. In Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, one of his rules is remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound of any language. Now, part of this section in his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, he asserts that if you say someone's name enough, they'll begin to like you. How I know this isn't exactly true is because Trump's name gets said at least once a minute on CNN or MSNBC and on these networks, and he obviously doesn't like them. However, I digress. There is a different rule of repetition that Carnegie touches in this section, and it's the idea that if during your conversation you repeat the name several times and try to associate it in your mind with the person's features, expressions, and general appearance, maybe the way they talk, mannerisms, everything like that, then you will then have an easier time remembering that person's name. Now, that could actually work in getting someone to like you as well, in the idea of, okay, well, I'm saying your name a lot. I'm showing you that I know who you are. But the point of noting this entire idea of repetition to remember somebody's name is that you are training your brain. Repeat the name with things related to that person and create an association. And while it's innocent, in some instances, when you're just training your brain to remember somebody's name, that technique to train your brain is also a tactic of the lamestream media, marketers, advertisers, and even more to train and wash your brain. And in some instances, in ways you might not even know. Repetition grabs your brain. Association trains it. So let's see how CNN and MSNBC are training the American public in their headlines alone. Because obviously, again, they're mentioning Trump almost 800 times in a 10-hour span, while Devon Archer is only being mentioned almost 50. And so what exactly are they trying to associate Trump with when they're mentioning him all this time? Well, I took some of the headlines from MSNBC and CNN within the last day. And so let's look to see exactly what it says. So here's one from MSNBC right here. You can see on screen. It says 2 indictments and 1 insurrection later, GOP voters still think Trump is fun. So what are they trying to associate it with? It doesn't necessarily even matter the content of everything. It's the words that they are putting with it, because they want you to think a subject and a predicate, right? The subject, Trump. What's the predicate? In this instance, it's indictments, insurrection. That's what they want to, and what they're trying to train your brain with is Trump, indictments, Trump, criminal, Trump, insurrection. That's what they're trying to train your brain with. Let's look at another one, CNN. Despite Trump's legal woes, half of the U.S. plans to vote for him. Again, Trump, legal woes, Trump, legal woes, Trump, criminal. And then you can even see under that, here Trump's unearthed comments on destroying evidence as he faces new obstruction charge. Trump, obstruction, Trump, destroying evidence. That's what they are trying to do. Train your brain and wash it. If you're from the Chicagoland area, you probably know things like this. If you've ever heard the Cars for Kids, 1877 Cars for Kids. KARS, Cars for Kids. So it's the idea of repetition to get you to remember something. And in media and advertising, they do it all the time. Another example of this, let's just look at a list of NBC's blog posts you can see here. So you can see here, Trump tried to say CNN reporting compared him to Hitler. Here's how that held up in court. Most people aren't even going to read that blog. They're going to read the headline. And you know what they're going to associate? Trump, Hitler, Trump, Hitler. That's what they are trying to do. So when you see your aunt at Thanksgiving and she tries to tell you Trump is literally Hitler, you know why she's doing so is because she is being brainwashed. And you can also see there's only 4 members of Trump's former cabinet support his 2024 candidacy, associating Trump with lack of support, period. And then Trump talks up firing special counsel Jack Smith. Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. This is what the lamestream media does. Why are they mentioning him? When one of the biggest news stories of the last few months about Biden corruption, the Biden crime family, Devon Archer, comes out. Why is the mainstream media covering Trump and how bad Trump is? Because they are trying to create that association. Why? Because in 2024, when Trump, and again, I'm not the biggest Trump supporter for 2024. I'll be the first to say it, but this is what the media is doing. They know that Trump is the likely nominee, at least right now in terms of polling for 2024. And so what they're trying to do is, while some media, alternative media, and some conservative media push the Devon Archer story, they're trying to remind everybody, look how bad Trump is. Look how bad Trump is, so that if it becomes a Joe Biden Trump election, like it seems to be right now, then everybody that is watching the Joe Biden and the Devon Archer stuff will be like, okay, Joe Biden is the worst. And everybody that's watching their liberal crap is going to say Trump is the worst. So instead of covering the news, they're brainwashing people, period. I mean, that's exactly what it is. That is what it is. Instead of covering the news, they're brainwashing people. What they're doing is deceptive word association. And don't get me wrong, conservative networks do this too. Conservative networks do it too. They do repetition. They, in some ways, do brainwashing. But how often do you hear about a conservative network ignoring stories that could be damaging to a powerful politician like Joe Biden? Not very often. Well, I mean, I remember hearing, I'm old enough to remember when they wouldn't report on the Hunter Biden laptop story when that first broke. That was misinformation. When they did talk about it, it was misinformation. Now they're not covering the Devon Archer story. There's tons of stories. Leave in the comments other stories that you know the liberal media hasn't covered. The thing is that conservative media will touch these stories. You want to know why? Is because conservative media will either debate the issue or concede a wrongdoing. Because they have the moral quandary that comes with the idea of Christianity and morality that is grounded in a Judeo-Christian society that conservatives actually love and respect within America's founding, to where they say, if I did something wrong, or if somebody that I supported did something wrong, we will admit it and we will report it. Or if you were saying you did something wrong, but it's a witch hunt or it was a setup, we are going to report that as well. You look at news sources like Fox, Daily Wire, The Blaze, all of them covered January 6th, the 2020 election, the hearings about January 6th, Trump impeachments, etc., all of it. And they allowed people to come on to debate both sides. Again, depending a little bit on which media source you looked at, but for the most part, that's what they did. Lefty networks, on the other hand, shy away from stories like Devon Archer. But I will give them this. They did mention the story of Devon Archer, albeit only 48 times in 10 hours, but they did mention it. One instance of them discussing the Devon Archer story and the Biden family corruption is on MSNBC's Morning Joe this morning, where they invited Democrat Rep Dan Goldman. You might have seen yesterday on my show. I talked about Dan Goldman. He's become, I don't know why, but he's become the person. He's like the person that was asked while the Titanic's sinking. He's the one that's got to rearrange the chairs for whatever reason when it comes to all this. But he is the one that has become the biggest Biden defender in the liberal media. And so there actually is a clip of him this morning on MSNBC's Morning Joe. They invited him on and they gave him and he gave a cushy and convenient explanation of why Joe Biden was on these phone calls that Devon Archer testified to with Hunter's business associates. Remember, again, yesterday, when I played the clip of him, he just said it's the weather. They were just talking about the weather. That was what Joe was talking about with the business associates. Well, today, just like the weather, the story has changed. The story has changed, everybody, and Devon Archer is fumbling for answers. Here is that clip.
Could you just, with specifics, tell us these phone calls that were a matter of such discussion yesterday? Like, what were they about? What would then Vice President Biden say in these conversations? Walk us through what happened.
Right. So let's put this in context. Beau Biden got very sick in early 2015. He died in the spring of 2015, which was right in the middle when Devon Archer had his business dealings with Hunter Biden. At that point, Joe Biden and Hunter Biden began to speak every day because they were both devastated by Beau's death. They spoke every day. The witness testified that over his 10-year relationship with Hunter Biden, there may be approximately 20 times when in one of those conversations, Hunter Biden would put his father at a dinner, not at a business meeting, at a dinner that he was having if he happened to get a hold of his father, and would ask his father to say hello to whoever was at the table. And that was essentially the extent of it. It was unclear. And the witness testified, this is not me saying that, the witness testified that a lot of times, most of the time, Joe didn't even know who the people were at the dinner table. So this was just simply, this may have been Hunter's effort to say, hey, this is, the vice president, this is my dad. But the critical part here for Congress, and that's what we have to make sure we understand, is that Joe Biden was doing nothing to benefit his son.
So, Congressman, you used the word
Joe
illusion
Biden
a
was
couple of
doing
minutes.
nothing. Joe Biden was doing nothing to benefit his son at all. No. He was doing nothing to benefit his son. Not getting on phone calls and even giving, he said an illusion of access to the vice president. No, that's not benefiting the son at all when he's at dinners with his business partners. It's not really about the weather either. And also, did you hear at the beginning of his answer too, how he tried to claim, well, they're victims. They were grieving the loss of Beau Biden. What does Beau Biden have to do anything about this? Look, God rest his soul. I am sorry. Like, I know what it's like to go through a familial loss. That's awful. And it's terrible. But what you want to know what's even more terrible is trying to cover up your corruption and your blatant lying to the American people. At a minimum, Joe Biden lied to the American people. I played the clip earlier. He said, no involvement. Well, there was some involvement, Joe. There was some involvement. And trying to cover that up and saying, well, you didn't really know because he was grieving the loss of his son. That's so messed up. That is unbelievably messed up. But alas, Joe Biden will always be a victim. And you heard it right there, everybody. He had no idea who he was really talking to. Just poor old Grandpa Joe. He's actually the victim in all this. Joe Biden will always be the victim. Hunter was just introducing his dad to people he worked with. Some even say, like you heard, it was just giving an illusion of access to then Vice President Biden. Just an illusion of access. How crazy is that? To say, oh, well, he's just giving an illusion of access. And so it's not wrong. It's not illegal. It's not illegal. Let's take a look at this clip of somebody going a little bit further into the illusion of access idea right here.
Candid about saying, and we don't have it yet. And even House Speaker McCarthy last week sort of push back against this impeachment inquiry momentum because he was like, look, we don't have evidence to go that far. And as far as Hunter Biden goes, there's no doubt. I mean, it's pretty clear, even those close to the Biden family suggest that some of his behavior was pretty unseemly. It doesn't make it illegal. And it also means we don't know the role that then Vice President Biden may have played. And it seems like, no, they haven't proven that he had anything to do with it. They haven't proven that he profited from this at all. Yet maybe he is guilty of turning a blind eye to some of his son's behavior. And we should put this in context. This is a time when Beau Biden, the president's other son, was ill and then dying and then passed away. So perhaps he was not as attentive to what he should have been here. But again, there has simply been no evidence, Gene Robinson, no evidence at all that he was profiting from this or that either of them committed a crime when it came to this. And we hear here from Comer and other Republicans, it's wishful thinking. They're trying to create a scandal when there's no evidence that they have one.
Yeah, they're trying to create a scandal, or at least the appearance of a scandal, the sort of smokiness of a scandal, and just create that atmosphere without actual evidence and without an actual scandal. Because I think it's pretty clear, at least so far, there is nothing there. There's nothing there. You could certainly argue that.
You hear him doing it too. I'm going to let him keep going just because I think it's important. But remember what I was talking about earlier? Remember how I told you that they're going to keep repeating the same thing over and over and over? There's no scandal. There's no scandal. They don't really say how there's not a scandal entirely, but there is no scandal, and they're going to keep telling you that. There is no scandal. There is no scandal. They're trying to drum up something. There's a smokiness. There's no scandal. And that's what they're going to keep saying.
At some point, if Hunter Biden put President Biden on the speakerphone for like 20 times, you could certainly ask whether at some point President Biden might have said, hey, quit putting me on speakerphone. Are you having a business meeting? Like, what is that about? But the context is
there's no scandal, but he just kind of explained what the actual scandal that Republicans are claiming there is why didn't he say anything? There's a lot of questions here. And so like was said by the first host, again, we're going to finish that, but like what was said by the first host is there still isn't any quote evidence. Well, there is some evidence. I mean, we have the emails from Hunter Biden's laptop that says that 10% goes to the big guy. We have Tony Bobulinski that is saying that confirms that the big guy references Joe Biden. So there is evidence there. Look, it's all testimony, correct? But there is some evidence to lead to it. Yes, we have more questions to answer. We're not done yet. We're not saying that this is the nail on the coffin, but I can tell you the hammer's about to strike. So there is more evidence that's necessary, and there is a scandal there. There are questions, and we're going to answer those. And so I think it's funny that the guy that keeps repeating that there's no scandal, this one right here, is the same guy that also lays out kind of what the scandal is. Why didn't Joe say, am I on speakerphone? Please hang up. Huh?
That this was a sort of very fraught and sad time for the Biden family, and we know how important family is to the president. And so, do you hang up on your phone on your son at any time? But certainly at a moment like that, and probably the answer is no.
Well, the answer is no, and so this is the thing that's going on. Everybody, here's what's going on: is that is all the different lies that they're going to tell you. Just wait, everybody. There is a lot that they're starting to say now, and it's just going to be the narrative that they are going to continue to push. Again, what I said at the beginning, repeat. Eventually people will believe it. They're training your brain. Just wait, everybody. I'm predicting it now, August 1st, 2023. I want these predictions on the record. Here are some of the things you are going to hear in the coming days, weeks, months from the liberal media about this controversy. No matter what else comes out, you'll continue to hear that Joe did nothing wrong. Joe did nothing wrong. Joe did nothing wrong. There's no scandal. That's what they're going to continue to say. That he has so many, you're going to hear things like he has so many phone calls. How could he possibly remember a measly 20 that he had that happened to include Hunter's business partners? You're going to hear things like what you just heard is, well, during this grieving time, he needs to take his phone calls from his son. And so he's going to take these phone calls. It's all just because of family, because Joe Biden's such a good family man. That's the thing you're going to keep hearing. You'll hear that Hunter just wanted his dad involved in his life since the loss of Bo. Again, which is so messed up. It is so messed up that it seems like such a stretch that it's all just because of the loss of Bo. And so they're going to tell Republicans, here's another thing they're going to say, Republicans are awful people. Here's what the liberal media is going to say this. Republicans are awful people because they are persecuting Joe Biden's family for the time in which they were mourning the loss of their son and brother. That's what the liberal media is going to say. And then if worse comes to worse, which it probably won't come to this, but if worse comes to worse, and it seems like that nail on that coffin on Joe Biden's presidency is actually coming, you'll finally hear the liberal media go after Hunter. Oh, but before that, I forgot to say, they're also going to continuously play up, oh, well, Hunter's an addict. You need to feel bad for him. He's a victim of his addiction, everything like that. But then, like I said, if worse comes to worse, impeachment seems like it is imminent, then you'll finally hear the liberal media go after Hunter. The way I see this going, if Republicans are smart and they can get it to this point, Joe will be forced to throw Hunter under the bus to save his own ass. I'm serious. That's the way that I would see this going if Republicans play their cards right, if the investigations lead to the answers that we pretty much know are there, that Joe in some way profited from Burisma, China, and all these business dealings. Why do you think Hunter tried to get immunity from all potential crimes in his? I'm just saying. But obviously we are not to that point yet. The thing is, in the liberal eye, Joe Biden will always be a victim. A victim of what? A victim of his loss for his son, Bo. He's a real family man that needs to be looked at with compassion for their struggles. And I'll agree with that to an extent in the fact that, yes, I have compassion for people that go through familial loss. What I don't have compassion for is you trying to cover up lies that are now exposed, like, period. Like, whether or not we're still working on figuring out the extent of possible corruption here, but you blatantly lied about having involvement in terms of phone calls and anything with your son Hunter's business dealings. And the liberal media is out there trying to say, well, it's because of his loss of his son, Bo, that he didn't really know. Well, I don't really have compassion for that. I don't really have compassion for using that level of loss to cover up anything like that. But he's just a real family man. The Bidens are just like everybody else, they'll say, and they actually do. Let's take a look at this clip from a CNN interview that happened over the weekend. I covered yesterday. He briefly, Joe Biden actually finally recognized his 7th granddaughter that Hunter had with a stripper. Yeah, he finally recognized that. And so let's take a look at exactly what what the CNN host had to say when one of the panelists called Hunter Biden a scumbag. See how the rest of them react. The fawning over Joe Biden is absolutely insane and frankly kind of hilarious. But let's take a look.
Ultimately, the Bidens are a real family just like everyone else.
Sure. But Scott Jennings, the president has made being a family man a central part of his political identity.
It's not Republicans, with all due respect, who made Hunter Biden into a complete scumbag on this and other issues. The ignoring his own daughter for 4 years and the president of the United States hanging up a stocking for the dog, and not for his 7th grandchild.
Okay, look, we can also have sympathy for people who are struggling with addiction. Let's keep this conversation respectful.
Listen, I totally agree. And you know where I'm from, a lot of families deal with addiction. And you know who ends up picking up the pieces? The grandparents. And in this case, the grandparents would not acknowledge this little girl. It is offensive. But the bottom line is,
but they have now.
Oh, what a hero. The polling must have been brutal.
Just
the polling must have been brutal.
No one ever questioned the heart and integrity of Joe Biden as a family man and as a human being and the pain and suffering and loss that man has been through, including the struggles he deals with.
So he's just a family man. Joe Biden is just a family man, everybody. He's just a family man, and we all need to. And so, no, he might have, but he did recognize his granddaughter now. And so he did now. So what a hero he is, right? What a hero. Look, the panelist called it out like it is. It's not Republicans that made Hunter Biden and Joe seem like a scumbag, especially on this issue. It is the Bidens themselves. But again, they'll just be victims. Joe is just a victim of the fact that his son passed away. Hunter is a victim of his addiction, and their subsequent actions, they can't be judged for them. Why should they be judged for them? Why should they be judged for the issues that are happening in their lives? Because they're just dealing with addiction. They're dealing with loss. That's all it is. That's actually what liberals believe too. They're all just victims, and it's the Republicans that are in the wrong here. Seriously, that's what they just said. You heard it all there. And I think the funniest part of that whole clip to me is he starts it off saying, well, the Bidens are just like everybody else. I'm sorry, no. The Bidens are not just like everybody else. Joe Biden has been in politics and been in government for over 40 plus years. They have profited millions and millions of dollars, whether that be from simply Joe Biden's career or also some level of corruption in terms of these Burisma deals, these this Chinese influence. And you can't tell me, no one can tell me that Hunter, even if it's not corruption, even if you accept the probable lie that there's no corruption happening at all, there is nepotism there, which everybody else doesn't have a father who is the vice president. You can profit off that nepotism. And you want to know what else the influence comes from is Hunter Biden's less than mediocre artwork that sells for thousands, if not millions. I don't know the exact price, but I know it sells for an absurd amount. And I've seen it and it doesn't look that great. So no, you can't just tell me that they're just like everybody else. But that, like I started this whole thing off with, that is the lie that the liberal media is going to tell you. They're going to keep bashing it into people's heads. And so when you hear people say and get defensive of Joe Biden and saying, well, he's actually a victim, he's just like everybody else, we need to have compassion for him, he lost his son, you know where they got it from. Everybody, if you're just tuning in, I'm your host, Kev Phares, and you're watching Speechless on Cities 92.9 and the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. Obviously, I'm not live on the radio. This is simply my YouTube daily show, and I'm so happy to be talking to you guys today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. There's that like button right there. You can subscribe. I'm trying new things with new cameras here, seeing the best way to bring you guys this content, and I hope you guys like it. Leave me a comment down below as to if you like the new camera setup. Am I messing it up? Maybe you got any advice for me? Let me know, because I'm always trying to upgrade and do new things here for Speechless. But we got another story to cover here. Bud Light is finally wove, or the distributors have waived the white. Yeah. We got another story for you guys here today, though. Bud Light, out of the New York Post, distributors are waving the white flag with Bud Light. Many Anheuser-Busch distributors say they are resigning to their painful Bud Light losses, and they've given up on luring back disaffected customers following the Dylan Mulvaney fiasco, the Post has learned. After 4 months of hiring freezes and layoffs, with some beer truck drivers getting heckled and harassed, even as Bud Light sales have dropped by more than 25%, Anheuser-Busch wholesalers have accepted that they have lost a chunk of their customers for good and need to focus on a crop of drinkers. Consumers have made a choice, said an executive at the Texas-based beer distributor who did not want to be identified. They have left Bud Light, and that's how it's going to be. I don't envision a big percentage of them coming back. Sales of the Anheuser-Busch beers, including Budweiser, Michelob Ultra, and Busch Light, have also been in decline since Bud Light's marketing tie-up with Dylan Mulvaney. Some stores are even rumored to not be restocking Bud Light. Earlier this month, social media users shopping at Costco posted images showing an asterisk, which customers have branded the Star of Death, that has appeared on the price display above shelves stacked with cases of Bud Light. The asterisk is thought to be an ominous sign that Costco either doesn't intend to restock its shelf, that doesn't intend to restock the shelf with the item in question. So everybody, here's the thing: I've always said I feel bad for the people in distributing, people they're hard workers, that work in warehouses, that are truckers, anything like that. I've always felt bad for it. But to take down the people at the top, unfortunately, the foundation has to crumble. And so overall, while I'm sad for them, I'm hoping, and I'd urge anybody, if you're watching this and you're one of those people, go check out what's going on with Coors and other brands. Coors, Heineken, other beer brands, if that's, or just period in the distributing industry. There are other brands that are doing much better because they haven't succumbed to woke nonsense nearly as much as Bud Light did with Dylan Mulvaney. And while it seems like the boycott, is working, everybody, and I've been covering this story for months, and I never imagined that the controversy would extend this long or this far. But here we are. This will be written about in textbooks. To be clear, this will be written about in textbooks. Usually things like this, it's a quick social media outrage, then on to the next thing. But this is one of the first times that it ever has not been that. And it is and the common man has been able to affect real change because the consumer did not listen to, the brand did not listen to the consumer. In fact, while I say this will be written about in textbooks, one prominent shark plans, and not a real shark, but from Shark Tank, plans on teaching this case study in college business classrooms. Let's take a look.
You know, when you talk about something you won't be seeing served as much on Main Street or at the kitchen table as the popular American beer Bud Light. I mean, you talk about making a misstep, 25% of market share collapses. That equates to billions of dollars in losses, all because, and this is a quote that I'm pulling off the internet, so, you know, not directly attributed, but Alyssa Gordon Heiner, I don't know how to say her last name. I'll just say this. She was quoted in a podcast saying the brand's focus was to no longer cater to frat guys. I don't know that frat guys are what was buying Bud Light, but I'll tell you who isn't buying Bud Light, about 25% of the people that used to.
Yeah, this is an extraordinary case, and one I'll be teaching in business schools across America this fall. In the history of beer, in the history from when it was marketed, because remember, you're dealing with a commodity. Beer is essentially the same. What differentiates it is brand.
Yeah.
So you spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year building up a brand, and then you have to ask yourself, on a campaign that really brings you into a discussion around gender identity, is that the right thing for my beer brand? Well, apparently not, because even if you spend $200 million a year, the biggest moves in the beer market were measured by 1% to 5% in a year. That's an extraordinary volatility. To lose 25% market share has never been achieved, and it's impossible to even dream it. So what have you learned? Social media, widely held view amongst my CEOs, is that if you get a bad social media story, it's going to go away in 24 to 48 hours. But that didn't happen here. No. We're still talking about this situation months later, and they continue to lose share. That's number one is an issue. Yeah. Number two, you've really got to understand here constituencies.
Exactly.
What they did there was very damaging.
Yeah, I think most of us can see that. I don't know.
Know your audience.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin O'Leary, great to speak with you this morning.
So, like he said, know your audience, or like she said, know your audience, and you got to know your constituencies, and that's what Bud Light did not do. That's what Bud Light did not do. Instead, they decided to go for the vanity, or like he said, the VP of marketing decided to say, hey, let's get away from the fratty audience. And so again, I've covered all this before. This is nothing new, but I think it's amazing. Again, Kevin O'Leary is not a particularly conservative individual. He's not. Kevin O'Leary has come out and been somewhat more woke in some of his ideology, but consider this, right? Kevin O'Leary, despite not being a conservative individual, speaks to the not explicitly political issue underlying this whole story. Know your consumer. And I believe the Bud Light fiasco in and of itself has sparked a consumer shift from liberal and woke pandering towards, if not conservative, at least realistic expectations of a company. So like, consider these. Bud Light and Target lost billions of dollars over anti-woke boycotts. Sound of Freedom just hit $150 million at the box office. Jason Aldean's Try That in a Small Town is the number one song, or was briefly the number one song on iTunes when the woke tried to cancel that. Disney lost $900 million plus on their last 8 released Disney movies, and Disney World itself is empty because it's too expensive and people are kind of fed up with the woke crap. As I constantly say on this show, the silent majority will be silent no longer. And these boycotts and bringing attention to people that actually represent what we represent will take back the American culture from the neoliberal fascists that are trying to put in things like ESG scores and corporate woke crap. The silent majority will be silent no longer. And Kevin O'Leary is going to go teach that in college classrooms, and I love it. And I love it. And now in a total spin away from that, I got another story and some other crazy news, but I want to remind everybody, if you're just tuning in, please don't forget, I'm your host, Kev Phares. You're watching Speechless, but please like, subscribe, and share to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. It'd be awesome. But let's get into this final story here in a total spin away from the Bud Light, from Hunter Biden and everything. A Japanese native has transformed himself into a canine. Yes. Really, I know we've had all the weird crap about men becoming women and everything like that. But let's take a look at this one. This is a Japanese man that has apparently turned himself into a canine. Let's watch a little bit of this. His name is Toko, apparently. Became a collie, fulfilling a dream that he once had. If you like it, please subscribe to the channel, like, and comment. I don't really like it. Frankly, it makes me particularly uncomfortable, but this is the dog outside. Oh my gosh, they're praising this man in a dog costume for shaking hands. Collected these videos, especially the scenes where he met real dogs. I assume they probably sniff each other's butts or something. All right. Is that what it is? Let's take myself out of the screen here so you guys can see this dog in the corner. Look, even though the little wave there was a little wave where that's a man. Dogs don't wave like that. And if they do, they're trained heavily to do so. They're parading this around. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Yeah, so meeting real dogs and everything. I'm going to lay out. Well, you guys can keep watching a little bit if you would like. But so this is a private citizen who goes by Toko online. Says the unusual garment has helped actualize his dream of, quote, becoming an animal. Seriously. Has helped actualize that dream. Maybe I'll go like this so that you guys can still, so you guys can still try to see some of this. Now I can go back down. So meeting real dogs, getting pulled around on that little scooter and everything. This is out of the New York Post, and an introduction video shared on his YouTube channel, not this one, but an introduction video. Toko answered some questions regarding his need for this transformation. He said he always, quote, had a vague dream of becoming an animal ever since he was a child. He said, "Do you remember your dreams when you were little? You want to be a hero or a wizard," he wrote in a clip, describing the life dog dream as seemingly, quote, unrealistic. "I remember writing in my grade school graduation book that I wanted to be a dog and walk outside." I mean, he's apparently achieved his dream right there. He chose to become a collie due to the negligible size difference between the breed and humans on all fours. He said, "I rarely tell my friends because I'm afraid that they will think I am weird." It's not just your friends who think you are weird, Toko. "My friends and family seemed very surprised to learn I became an animal." Why do you think that is? Self-reflect for a moment. Why do you think that is? The Japanese man said last year that most of his colleagues are also unaware that he dresses as a dog outside of work. He says, "I don't want my hobbies to be known, especially by people I work with," he told the Daily Mail. "They think it's weird that I want to be a dog for the same reason why I can't show my real face." You're not the only ones that think it's weird. This whole thing is weird. Toko the dog, everybody. This is the weirdest flipping party trick I've ever seen. Because it's not just a party trick, and that's the weird thing about this. Is if he was just doing this to like go to birthday parties and it was kind of like a thing like that, it'd still be a little weird, but like if he was making money off of it. But you want to know the real kicker of all this? We'll break down a little bit more, but you want to know what the real kicker? I don't know if you guys have seen enough, but we can keep going. Let's go to here. Yeah, and then he like rolls around and everything, and they all cheer. They're like cheering for him as if he's a real dog, but it's a man. Like, I can roll around on the ground. Am I special? You guys want to know what the real kicker of all this? I'm done with this. This is weird. But you want to know the real kicker of all this is how much he paid for it. You want to know how much it cost this guy for this costume? You want to know how much? The company that manufactured Toko's costume, collie costume, says it took 40 days to make this whole furry costume, and it cost him about 2 million yen. Obviously, that's the Japanese currency. In United States dollars, that's $14,161 for this costume. $14,161. That's how much it cost this guy for this. So there's questions I have, but I don't want to know the answer to. Such as, how does he get in and out of this costume? How's the mechanics of it? I was curious about that. Does he eat dog food? Is he actually that committed to it? If he really wanted to be a dog, if this stems from childhood dreams, then does he live up to it? Does he eat from a dog bowl? Does he eat dog food? Does he drink food from does he drink water from a dog dish? Another question I have, which sensitivity warning on this one, is this like a bestiality thing? Is he going to breed with other dogs? Does he actually believe? Because a lot of the videos and even his comments lead me to believe that he doesn't actually think he's a dog. He's just has a profoundly weird hobby, like a My Strange Addiction kind of hobby. But if he genuinely believes in some way that he's part dog or anything like that, is this a bestiality thing? Finally, my question, which I hope the answer is no. Is this the crumbling of society? Is this going to become, because right now this is getting a lot of media attention because it is weird and odd, and I'll give it that. However, there are people that dress up as furry costumes, and it is a sexual kink. Is this going to become widely accepted? Is this going to become a fight that we have to have with people comparable to that of the gender ideology? I mean, of course, most people that watch my show understand the biological truth that men cannot become women and women cannot become men. Are we going to soon have the fight of humans cannot become dogs and dogs cannot be humans? Transspeciesism? Again, it's getting a lot of media attention because of the absurdity it has right now and it holds right now. But is it going to become the mainstream? Is this going to become something that we genuinely have to debate in the public sphere? Because if that's the way it is, well then, oh my God, throw me in the gulag. I'm ready. Everybody, I hope you liked the show today. I had some technical difficulties filming it, I'll be honest, especially with some internet stuff, but I hope you like the dual camera layout now too. Trying new things here on Speechless. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment on what you think, and if you liked anything you saw here, don't forget to share it. Because that's the way that we get these messages out here, especially getting people to understand. You want to know how to fight back. This is kind of like the conclusion of my first story. You want to know how to fight back against the brainwashing? People got to know what's happening. And so if you want people to know what's happening, share the video. I'd really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, share, comment. Let me know what you think, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Kev Phares, and you've been watching Speechless, The Daily Show.